I think we're live. Are we live? I'm waiting. I'm watching LinkedIn to see if it's working, and because there's about a 10 or 20-second delay, and I see something, nothing yet. I might have to refresh. Sometimes you have to refresh. Let's see what's going on YouTube. Live on YouTube? Oh, okay, cool. Well, I'm not seeing it. So, hey, everybody. Welcome to LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live. Bob Cooney here. What? Oh, really? Oh, that's not good. My text is backwards, so the slides are all going to be backwards too. How's that? Is that backwards too? Talking to Kylie, my producer. Sometimes you got to flip the video. There we go. Is that better? All right, I just flipped the video. Let me know if that helps. I flipped the camera, but I'm not sure that's going to change the video, which is really frustrating because you're not going to be able to read any of the words, and this whole thing's going to be a freaking clown car in a dumpster fire. Testing. I've tested this. Text is still backwards. What is going on? So I'm using Restream. Thank you, Restream. Now, I did this in Zoom, and it worked perfectly fine yesterday or 2 nights ago for the WXO. And so I am not sure what the hell's going on. Is this are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Let's see. I'm going to Google how to reverse video on Restream. Why does my camera look? If your video input looks familiar, it would be because you've chosen to mirror your camera, except it didn't mirror my camera. Turn it off in the gear in your stream preview studio. Then click the video tab in the stream preview. Then click the video tab. All right. Well, there you go. Always testing out new video. There we go. Video, mirror camera, boom! Fixed. All right, so I've been testing out some new, I used to use StreamYard. StreamYard got bought by a company called Twisted Spoon, something out of France. They're notorious for like gutting staff and doubling prices, which they did. I dumped Restream. I've been looking for a tech stack, one platform to do everything. Really doesn't exist. So now I've been using a platform called which is what I'll be using for managing it's kind of the studio. It's only $10 a month. It's MMHMM. It's been freaking awesome. It's actually developed by the guy who created Evernote in the first place, which was also bought by that weird Twisted Spoons company. And they raised the price. I dumped them. So I just dump everything they buy. And this software has been great. So check out as far as a production suite. They have a Mac app. It's awesome. Then I'm using Restream to live stream to LinkedIn Live and YouTube. I'm using the free version. You can little Restream logo up there. Really the only downside, and you can live stream to 2 different channels. So for $10 a month, I've got a live streaming, restreaming studio. What a bargain. It's working. My producer, Kylie, says it's working. Thumbs up. All right, so let's get on with this shit. Here, watch this. That's not working either. Oh, for fuck's sake. Whatever. All right. So recently, let's go back here. Recently, last fall at the Venice Immersive, which is where they do the big Venice Film Festival, they do an immersive festival. And oh, by the way, this thing down here, the VR Collective, Join that. It's free. It's an online community built in Circle for people in the location-based VR industry. And we're trying to build kind of a community of practice to talk about best practices, industry standards, maybe create an association, whatever. But that's where you want to be if you're interested in location-based VR. So join that. And at Venice Immersive, they did a think tank. Now, I was part of a think tank at Laval Virtual one year. And we published a paper called The Guardians of the Metaverse. And we were talking about all these things that were going to happen with virtual reality and the possibilities and the dangers. And it was like the 7th of these annual think tanks. And every year, I guess what would happen is they'd write a detailed report, and then nobody would do anything with it. And the next year they'd have another think tank where the new people would read the old report. They would do a new report, updated a year, and then nothing would happen. And I suspect similar things are happening with this. So I want to promote this, not this. What's going to happen in there? Anyway, I really want to talk about this, and I want to build a community of practice around the challenges that location-based VR has as an industry, because it's about to explode. And I'm not talking about VR arcade games and VR arcades and zombie shooters. I'm talking about location-based virtual reality as the next immersive entertainment medium. The technology has gotten to a point where it's really affordable, it's super reliable, it's inexpensive to create content, and getting cheaper with AI and these no-code platforms that are being released. You can do, and the operating models are profitable. That's the thing I've been waiting for now for 9 or 10 years that I've been watching this industry. Where are the profitable operating models? And in 10 by 10 room scale VR arcades were not it. I wrote about that in a book in 2017. Even some of the free roam VR stuff like, sandbox VR, I think the economics could be questionable. I don't know. It could be working really well. I don't have transparency into it. But I do know that these large scale ones, things like that have been done by Felix and Paul and Xcurio and Universe, and now Weaver's jumping into it, where you can have, 30, 40, 50, 80, 100 people at a time in one experience. The operating economics of that, very good. So I want to talk about, we're going to talk about the report, we're going to talk about the challenges of the industry, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what we might have to do about it. So, and the big challenge right now is I see lots and lots and lots of projects that come to market. And a lot of these show up. Last summer, I went to the SIGGRAPH conference, and there's a VR theater there with all of these great immersive virtual reality experiences that no one is ever going to see, because most of them only wind up going to these conferences and film festivals because they're not profitable to operate. Now, this place had capacity for about 30 or 35 people, and they had a staff of like 20 or 25 people, mostly volunteers from Ringling College of Art and Design, hey Marty, that were running that, right? And so if you have 20 employees, now they were volunteers, but if you have 20 employees to run a 35-person theater, you're going to lose money constantly, right? So that the systems don't make sense. So I see all of these amazing experiences that creators build, and they don't fit. They don't fit the physical space that locations have. They don't fit necessarily the audience that tends to go to those locations. They don't fit the operational requirements of the operator who's going to run the damn thing, or the employees who are going to staff the thing. And so creators go into this business and without understanding the retail entertainment operating landscape. Right. And there's no product market fit because they're thinking, no, maybe this isn't a product. Maybe it's a creation, or maybe it's art. But if it doesn't fit the market and it doesn't have a business model, nobody's going to see it. And then the art doesn't actually matter. And that is a shame, because the art should matter. There's this kind of mentality of, if you build this amazing thing, it has to be successful mindset. Now, I might be dating myself with this movie reference, I realize. But if you haven't seen it, Field of Dreams, Kevin Costner, it's amazing. I can't count the number of companies that have come to me after they've built a product, after they've tried to take it to market, and they're stuck. They didn't understand the market. They didn't have a go-to-market that was possibly going to be successful. And then they're out of money and they're looking for help. And it's too late because they don't have the money to either change the solution or pivot their marketing strategy or bring on new staff to fill in the core competencies that they didn't have when they started that they need to bring the product to market. They had no idea about the market dynamics, the operator and consumer requirements. There's probably a list of 100 things. Jay-Z, I got 99 problems that ain't one. Well, there's 99 things you got to know to bring a VR product to market. And if you don't know most of them, you're never going to succeed. And the biggest one is really, it's got to be financially viable. There's got to be, the experience design has to come with a business model that supports long-term sustainability or nobody gets to experience it. And there are two operational metrics that I preach that are critical. And this goes back to my days starting LaserStorm. And I created LaserStorm with a spreadsheet, right? It wasn't SolidWorks. It wasn't a pen and pencil on graph paper. It literally was a spreadsheet. It was like, how can you make laser tag profitable for an operator? Because the one that existed was called Photon. It was 20,000 square feet. It cost $1 million to build in 1985 model numbers. Nobody could make money at that. And so there are two metrics that you have to think about first and foremost. And the creativity has to be of service to the business model. Number one, revenue per square foot. How many people can do it at once, for how long they do it, times the ticket price you think you're going to get for it. And I'll give you a couple of examples, right? So Universe, one of my clients out of Barcelona that's doing like long form, story-driven walkthrough VR experiences at high volume. They can put 30 people in about 1,500 square feet. And they can, and it's a 15-minute, let's say it's a 15-minute experience. A lot of their experiences are bolted onto these big projection map experiences. And I just did one at the Loom in Melbourne, Australia, where they did the first one that did the Van Gogh immersive experience, with all these screens, and it's 20,000 square feet and it's millions of dollars to build. And they just relaunched it with about a 2,000 square foot VR attraction called Finding Vincent. And you put on a headset and you wander through and you go through this kind of immersive storytelling experience, trying to help Vincent's brother, Theo, find Vincent after he cut off his ear and he was in an insane asylum somewhere in France. It's a great story. It's really moving, but it's really efficient, right? You can have 20 or 30 people at a time. They all pay $20 a head, which is on top of the $40 ticket that they have to buy to get into the immersive, the projection map experience. And so their revenue per square foot is like $120 per square foot. It's massive. It's awesome. And then the other side of that equation is one, and again, I'm going to show you this can work on either side. It doesn't have to be massive throughput, high volume, but it's got to have that right revenue, that ratio of ticket price and square footage and volume. So one of my other favorites is Jump from Limitless VR. If you've been following me from Limitless Flight, if you've been following me, I love that experience. It's from James Jensen, who was the technical co-founder of The Void. And it's a wingsuit flying experience, right? You put on a real wingsuit and you put on a helmet and they hook you up to this parachute, which is really this giant hydraulic harness. And you have to jump out of the airplane into a wind tunnel that you don't see initially. And you have to have the courage to jump, but it requires a really high level of employee. It's like one employee per customer, maybe even more, because that's just back of house. And you have to have somebody front of house. So you might have 1.2, 1.5, or 1.8 employees to customers, and it's fairly big. It's one person in maybe, I'm guessing, 600 square foot, because it's a big wind tunnel, right? And so their revenue per square foot is really high because they charge $100 to $120 per ticket. It's only one person in 600 square foot, but it's $120 versus maybe 15 or 20 or $30. And so revenue per square foot is a critical metric to build a profitable location-based VR experience. Now, the second one is labor as a percentage of revenue. In the restaurant business, we used to call it labor rate or labor percent, right? And so Universe, back to their experience, the one at the Loom, they had one person greeting people as they came in. They had one person wiping down headsets and putting them on people. They had one person who was just acting as a monitor in the experience to make people didn't bump into each other, because there was a lot of kids that they didn't get too unruly, or old people like me who might have got disoriented. And then there was one person taking it out and wiping down the headset. So they were running this $2,400 an hour at peak capacity attraction with 4 people. And let's say they were paying them $20 an hour. In Australia, it might have been a little bit more. And so what I like to do is I like to calculate initially a peak labor rate. So if I'm at 100% capacity, how many staff do I need? And what do I have to pay them? And what's the peak labor rate? What would my labor as a percentage of revenue in that busiest hour be? And so, for example, Universe at a peak labor rate could be as low as 3.3%. It's ridiculously low. Jump could be 5 or 6 or 7%, right? And obviously, you're rarely going to run at 100% capacity. So your practical one is going to be higher than that. And you have to model that in a spreadsheet with day parts and blah, blah, blah. But labor as a percentage of revenue, the second metric. Everybody seems to focus on cost of deployment or CapEx, and they talk about return on investment. And so many times I see that number modeled on just top line revenue without taking into consideration rent expense, which is what goes against your revenue per square foot, because rent is a fixed expense per square foot, or labor expense, which is number of employees, which is based on your capacity utilization. And so return on investment needs to be calculated CapEx after rent and labor as a bottom function. And then you have other operating expenses, which might be fixed or variable, but those are the 2 big ones. And so when you're thinking about just creating a new VR attraction or a new VR experience, you got to start with those metrics, really 3. Revenue per square foot, labor cost, cost of development, or cost of deployment. And the cost of deployment is, what are you going to sell it for? Or if you're operating it yourself, what's it cost you to build each unit that you put out? And if it's not profitable on a single unit economic level, which means the first unit and then the second unit's profitable and then the third unit's profitable, you don't have a business, period. So now, because we don't have these solid standard economic models, what we have is a lack of distribution in the market, right? And the reason we have, so there's no clear path between creative creation and audience access. Where do you do this shit? People don't go to film festivals. That's only industry insiders. So how does the audience get to see this stuff? And in order for that to happen, we have to have locations. And in order to have locations, we have to have a profitable business model. So operators will dedicate the space and the infrastructure to run these VR experiences, right? And so the lack of distribution is holding back the industry. We're in a lockjam because there's not enough content, because there's not enough locations. And there's not enough locations because there's not enough content. It's like Uber. Without the drivers, you don't have the passengers. Without the passengers, you don't have the drivers. So we've got to break this lockjam. And the way we break these lockjam is that we focus on feasibility and we create some standards around the tech stack, which has kind of happened with HTC Vive and Pico. There's really just 2 choices: inside out tracking. It's pretty simple now. We've got some standards around the tech stack. Now we have to have standards around the operating model and the footprint. And so one of the quotes that came out of the I got to change that background so you can read that better. Sorry. There we go. From the Venice Immersive report. By the way, it's just gotten super buggy. I'm trying to change the background and it's not working. $10 a month. I'm okay putting up with some bugs. I'm being consulted. There's a quote. Now, the people who were part of the report, this was written, by the way, by Kent Bai, Voices of VR podcast. If you don't follow him, you need to follow him. He is the documentarian of the virtual reality industry, and he does amazing work. And the festival is organized by Lynn Rosenthal. You should definitely follow her on LinkedIn. And she was the one that held space for this Venice Immersive think tank. And so all credit to them for anything that I'm talking about today that's coming out of this report. And so one of the quotes was, "Now I'm being consulted to figure out better throughput and less square footage without reducing the artistic vision." Now, this is a comment about one of the most powerful location-based VR experiences ever created, Carne e Arena. And it was about the plight of refugees. And it's well documented that people that did this experience left in tears constantly. And considering everything happening in the world with refugee populations and all the, the nationalism that's happening, there's no more relevant time for this experience to be seen by lots of people than today. And I'm really glad to see that they're going to take another swing at this and try to make it more accessible by increasing the throughput. But one of the things this guy said, if only those considerations of better throughput and less square footage were put on the table in early prototyping and design stage. I never got to see this because every time it went up, the tickets were sold out like that, and it was in another city. Like they would run one place at a time. It would be in LA, it would be at DC, and I could never see it. I still haven't seen it to this date, and it drives me crazy because there wasn't enough throughput. And so we've got to fix this. Another one is this, I love this one, the LBE trend of standalone headsets. So this is the debate that's happening between PCVR, which is really high quality, which used to be done with backpacks. But now that there's no backpacks, everybody's let them go and everybody's switching to standalone headsets, which is lower visual quality. It is less processing power. It's a mobile chip in a VR headset versus an NVIDIA high-end graphic GPU in a PC for each headset. And the reason that we're moving away from PCVR to standalone is because max PCVR through Wi-Fi 6E is maybe a dozen headsets. If you try to, I don't know anybody who's successfully going more than that. I don't think Wi-Fi 7 is necessarily going to help that. And the millimeter wave technology that's out there is, $100,000, $200,000. It just doesn't scale. It's not affordable. And so everybody's going to standalone headsets. So that's that tension between the creative experience and the visual fidelity versus the throughput and the cost of the experience. And this comment of LBE trend of using standalone headsets may be driving down the market in terms of quality. There's a risk of people being disappointed in LBE VR or feeling like paying a ticket for this is not worth it. Now, I've been railing against this mindset for years. I've been saying the visual fidelity actually doesn't matter in LBE. It has never mattered in LBE. And now we're seeing that it actually doesn't matter in VR at all. The number one game on the Quest store right now is called Gorilla Tag. Google it, hit images, and you'll see the visuals of that. It's, it's cartoon paint, 2D paintings. The new one that was just built by a team of 5 from Spatial is called Animal Company. Same thing, Roblox started out, Minecraft. It's about the experience and the game loops and the social, not about the visual quality. Most recently, Batman Arkham Asylum, one of the most beautiful PC VR games ever created. The visuals were great. It's also on Quest, and it looks great on Quest. Nobody's buying it. It's $60. People don't care. And now we actually have a real data point. So Xcurio, which has built Horizons of Khufu, Night with the Impressionists, a bunch of other experiences, they were always backpack based. They have 100 backpacks in a 10,000 square foot space run by, most of them are run by, 6 of them are run by a company called Eclipso, ECLIPSO, if you want to Google it. And I've spoken to the CEOs of both of those companies about the transition from backpacks and PCVR to standalone headsets. And that transition hasn't impacted the ticket price or the reviews. And I've confirmed that for myself. I've gone and looked on Fever, and the reviews for Horizons of Khufu, running both the old one running PCVR and the new one running standalone on the HTC Focus 3 and Focus Vision, average 4.85. And 4.9 on Google reviews, right? You don't get those reviews if people are disappointed in they're paying a ticket that's not worth it. And so we have to let go of this mindset. The tech stack is standalone headsets. The standalone headsets are going to get better. As a developer, you have to get better at optimizing your content development and your workflows to work within the constraints of the XR2 Plus chipset that everybody's using. The other one is, I love this, the most successful installations in museums sacrifice the quality of the user experience because of crowded footprints and people bumping into each other, etc., for profitability, sacrificing the experience for profitability, that's the mindset that's holding the industry back. It's an insane thing to think. It just doesn't make sense to me. And as a 11-time, 12-time entrepreneur who's built lots of successful companies, you can't sacrificing anything for profitability unless you're, funded by the government to create pure art, or you got the Medici family behind you. Profitability is table stakes. And then you design your art within that. Now, here's the universe map that I've referred to that got me so excited about this space. This is about a 1,500 square foot space. It's got, right now, there's 30 people in it. It's a half-hour experience. There are 6 scenes in that 30-minute experience. And then what you do is you start, see if this works. You come in here, you go around this corridor, right? And then you go into this first scene and you do a scene together. And the first scene here is the flying attic. This is the fairy tales experience. And then when that scene is over, it's about a 4-minute scene. Then you go back out here, back into the corridor. The corridor is different because now you're in scene 2. And then you go back in here and you're in the dragon's castle fighting the dragon. Now, while I'm in here fighting the dragon, somebody else has just come in and is still in the flying attic scene. And some other people are in the Aladdin's castle, and some people are in Mermaid, because we're going around and around and around, and each scene is stacked on top of each other. And so I see people, if I'm in Dragon Castle, I see people in Aladdin Palace as ghosts. So I know not to bump into them. And they've been smart about the experience design where people don't, where, the place that I have to get to in a Dragon Castle scene for the interactive elements are in different places than the thing that the flying attic interactive elements are in, or the Little Mermaid interactive element might be in. And so each scene has its own interactive elements. And with smart design, and they have a no-code platform now that lets just a Unity artist design these experiences and these workflows, it allows us to go through. But do we bump into each other occasionally? Yeah. Does anybody get hurt? No. I bump into people all the time. I bump into people on sidewalks and airplanes and shopping malls. I went to Coachella and I spent $1,000 to be crushed at the front of the stage watching the Tupac hologram with my kids. And I had to actually lift one of them up and hand them to security. He was 14 years old because he couldn't handle the throng of people pushing because it was dangerous. Did that ruin the experience? No, I'm telling you that story 10 years later. It was the experience. And so let go of this whole concept of sacrificing profitability and experience because so many people are in it enjoying each other, bumping into each other. It's just silly, silly, silly thinking. Because if the experience doesn't make money, it doesn't matter because nobody experiences it. So you got to hold, as an experience creator, you have to hold this tension between artistic vision and commercial viability. That's your job, right? You got to hold that tension. It's a paradox. It's the yin and the yang, and you got to make them both work. Now, because distribution, there's not a lot of venues, and the venue market is so kind of scattered and fragmented, we need to create a venue database. And as more venues come online, the industry needs to coalesce, standardize around footprints and operating models. So operators and venues have more options for content that fits their audience and their desires, right? And one of the things that came out of the report was, the need for information. We need data about venues, and they have nothing at the moment. We can't create the formats unless we have the data on the venues. That's smart thinking. That's somebody who understands the market. Now, somebody else, though, said, we try not to let out too much information because then someone else is going to copy us with the same thing. And we're never free with our specs until we're under NDA. And that is what is called a win-lose or scarcity mindset. And in an early market where we're just emerging and it's still day one of the location-based VR market, You got to have an abundant mindset. You got to share this information, because if you think that your venue layout or your operating model or your resolution specifications or whatever is your competitive advantage, you're screwed, because the minute you take it to market, people are going to see it and they're going to copy it. When I started LaserStorm brought it to market in 1991 at IAPA, there were two laser tag companies. There was us on the low price end, and there was a company called Quasar Space Games that became Qzar out of Ireland. They were 10 times more expensive than us. Two different operating models. Within 5 years, there were 16 companies selling laser tag equipment, some on the high end, some on the low end. The market got super fragmented and super crowded. Luckily, we were early and we're able to defend our leadership position, but not because we were early, not because we had anything really unique that couldn't be copied, because we continued to innovate. We layered intellectual property on top of it. We did Stargate laser tag. We did X-Men laser tag. You got to keep innovating on the content and the experience, and let go of this need that think you have some special operating model that's going to be proprietary that people aren't going to be able to copy. We're almost done. So a couple other things that came out of the immersive think tank. One of them is that VR can be a bit much. It can be overwhelming to people. I know everybody in the VR industry thinks everybody has done VR, and there's surveys that show 70% of the population has done VR. The vast majority of that is still Oculus Go or Cardboard or Galaxy VR, which we know isn't VR. In fact, I gave a version of this presentation this week at the WXO, the World Experience Organization Campfire. And one of the comments from one of the members was that they had done VR in 2018 at the War of the Worlds experience which was amazing immersive experience in London. And it had a VR component, and it was using HTC Vive with outside-in tracking and PCVR, and the tracking was difficult. Like the technology, it just wasn't there yet. And she had a bad experience. And she's carried that belief through to 2025, saying that, well, a lot of people don't like VR or get sick in VR or uncomfortable. So how do we accommodate those people in a VR experience? And I just did I spent days at the Loom watching everything from 5-year-olds to 80-year-olds go through this experience, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And I heard 3 comments over several days of people that went like, yeah, I got a little bit, it made me feel a little bit disoriented. But nobody pulled out, and the reviews are really high. And so I don't know I think you just got to accommodate them through your employee staff training. I don't think you have to build a parallel path where some people do VR and some people don't. But VR can be overwhelming because it's freaking amazing. And what we need to do is we need to build in reflection. So when people are done with the experience, they have a chance to sit and reflect and talk about it with the other people. And I watched people at the Loom with Finding Vincent do this. They had a bench on that back end, and probably 2/3 of the people that came out of the experience would just sit on the bench and talk about what they just experienced, which was really cool. Jump from Limitless Flight does this. They have a whole reflection room. When you get through your jump with your friends, you have beanbags and a giant video wall, and you watch replays of the jump, and you sit there, and they have a little coffee machine and a fizzy water machine, and you just sit there with your friends and you reflect on what you just did, because it's a really transformational experience. And we need to have more of that. I just interviewed the licensee operator of Zero Latency in the Netherlands last night. That'll come live in a couple of weeks. Watch for it. And he was talking about how he built a bar. It's mostly non-alcoholic for licensing revenues, except for private parties. But the bar has visibility into the experience. And when people are done, almost all of them come out, they sit at the bar, they have a drink, and then they watch the next group play while they talk about what happened. Reflection is a key component of these experiences. I call it the third act. The setup is everything from when you buy your ticket to the time you put on the headset. The second act is the experience itself where you're in the headset. But the third act, we dump people out into the parking lot, and we need to design those into the experience. The other one that they talked about in the report was VR can be isolating. And I think that, again, that's a mindset. And with new mixed reality technology built into all of these headsets, and the ability to do photorealistic avatars now, We're going to see those roll out in March, hopefully from Universe, and hopefully other companies are going to follow them. You're going to see more social experiences. But even with zero latency, I was talking to Martin last night, and he said that, the name of the person is in front of is on top of their avatar. They make up goofy names. And then when they're done in the experience, they come back, and people who did the experience with other people that they didn't even know inevitably sit there and talk to each other, and they reflect on that experience. So VR doesn't have to be isolating. Multiplayer VR can be social, and new technology where it's photorealistic avatars. So I see you as you are in the world, not as you've decided to be in the experience. Though you might have a goofy outfit. That's kind of cool. But I see your face, more connection there. And I think that's coming. And that plus mixed reality is going to create amazing social experiences. So play around in that space. If anybody's got any questions, by the way, you can post them in the chat and I can supposedly see them. And I'm just going to see, they're not coming through on Restream. I don't see anything. So that's okay. 3 takeaways I want you to think about here. Number 1, begin with the go-to-market strategy in mind. How are you going to get your experience or your product to market? Because those constraints are gonna have to be designed in the early stages, okay? Absolutely critical. Do not skip this step. If you need help, that's what I do. I can help you. I've written a book about this. It's called Real Money from Virtual Reality. You can download it for free in the VR Collective community, and it gives you a step-by-step guide on how to figure out your go-to-market strategy in this space. Number 2, develop business model awareness. Focus on single unit economics. It's got to be profitable. If one location won't make money, you can't make it up with scale. A lot of people think that's what the Void was trying to do, that because the content cost was so expensive that if got enough locations open, they'd be able to defray the content cost over 10, 20, 30, 40 locations and the company would be profitable. But the problem is each unit wasn't profitable. And so you can't make that up at scale, right? That's a joke in the retail business, by the way. Oh yeah, my first store is not profitable. I'll make it up with scale. If you get it, you get it. And the third one is figure out your venue strategy before you start creating, all right? Work within the known infrastructures to expand your reach, and then go meet with those people who own and operate those venues on day one to share your vision with them and learn from them what their needs were. The reason I started the VR Arcade Game Summit was because I was going to all these shows and I saw VR companies that were developing solutions that were never going to work in a location-based entertainment setting because they'd never spoken to a location-based entertainment operator. And so I thought, hey, let's do the VR Summit at a place where operators are coming, and then the solution providers and the creators could talk to the operators, and we'd start seeing some traction. And it's worked, right? We have a location-based VR industry now that's working, and those best practices are starting to trickle down, but they're happening way too slowly. And if and I also see them happening in the gaming market. But I feel like the gaming market is disconnected from the storytelling market now. And we need to bring what have we learned from 10 years of VR arcades into the storytelling VR creative market and cross-pollinate that information so the storytelling market doesn't make the same mistakes that the gaming market made, which held it back. And so I'm assuming you already know me and we're already connected, but if you're not, connect with me on LinkedIn. Feel free to do that. If you're in the industry, I accept all connections. If you're trying to sell me game development services, don't, because I don't build games myself. And so I don't need your engineering services. Join the VR Collective, scan the QR code. It's free to join. Get in there, talk about what you're doing. Let us know what's happening. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and let's stay connected and watch more shit. So I did see that, Kylie. Thank you. You were the only one that commented. See, but if you did comment, this would have happened. And you would have been famous for a minute. But anyway, that's all I've got. I thank you for watching. If you're watching this on a recording. Drop your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Do you disagree with any of this? I want to know. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm always open to being wrong. I do the best I can. I synthesize a shit ton of data that's coming at me at 1,000,000 miles an hour from 363 degrees, 360 degrees, 363 degrees. What the hell is that? And I try to do the best I can in synthesizing it into information that can make it actionable for you to put it into work. But sometimes, yeah, maybe I'm wrong. Or maybe there's stuff I don't know. What am I missing? Tell me. Post below. Link, subscribe, connect. I love you all. Come to the VR Arcade Summit. It's not too late. You still got almost 3 weeks to make your flight reservations. VRArcadeSummit.com. It's going to be a banger. As they say, we are going to see if I can do this live. Let's see. Screen share. Boom, 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 and boom. Did that work? There we go. That's the agenda. And I'm really excited about some of the things on this agenda. I'm talking about, let's see, how do I get back here? So I'm excited about all of it, but we're going to be talking about education and location-based VR and the role of education in location-based VR. We've got Dreamscape Learn coming to share with us. Andrea Fromm, who just deployed Dreamscape Learn at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. We've got David Bardos coming in from Barcelona, who's going to be talking about their working with the Barcelona government, the Catalan government, where they're rolling out free roam VR classrooms in schools across Spain. Steve Grubbs from Victory XR is going to be there, and Jason Van Heerden, who's working on an ISS free roam educational VR experience with NASA. Holy crap, that's going to be cool. And then the other one that we're going to be talking about, this next generation of free roam experiences, the art and storytelling stuff. Anthony Batt from Weaver. Actually, I'm not sure he's coming. He might have been substituted. He's going to be in Europe, and the president of Weaver is going to be there, and I don't remember his name. I apologize. David Bardos again, Lou Pesanti from the Experientials, and Fabian Baratti from Immersive, who created Horizon of Khufu and others. And so some amazing content. We're stepping beyond, VR arcade zombie games this year. We're going to be talking about the downloadable theme park with Brent Bushnell and James Jensen and Salem Tyne, who runs EVA, which is a 10,000 square foot tract space with all kinds of content in it down in Texas. We're going to be talking about premium experiences and how do you get the highest ticket prices for these things. And James Jensen and Annie Parker from Zero Latency and George Smith from FEG are going to be there. Like, so much going on. And this was just added. So we got Snap is sponsoring us for the first time, and they're coming in with their spectacles. They're doing location-based services, platform tools that they're working on, because they're creatives. Their creators and their community have said, we want to use spectacles to create location-based entertainment experiences. And so we're going to be talking about using AR in LBE. And Enclue is going to be there with talking about their Venice Immersive, and Brent Bushnell, who's been incubating a new concept with augmented and mixed reality, is going to be there talking about that. So lots of new shit. You need to come to Vegas, March 17th and 18th at the Westgate Hotel Conference Center. www.vrarcadesummit.com. I hope to see you there. Tickets are like $100 and something bucks, for crying out loud. Vegas is cheap. Come to Vegas, spend a few days, check out Area 15 while you're there. If you're in the immersive space and you're not coming to Vegas for this, I don't know what you're thinking. Anyway, I love you. Thanks for watching, and I'm going to try to hit the end button now, and we'll see